there are a couple of items that's listed on the agenda that we would like to provide you some updates on, one being the utility building software conversion, as well as a review of the wastewater rates. However, there's a couple of other items I would like to kind of share with you prior to talking about those two issues. I believe that you are aware that after every month, I like to always do a quick recap to you to let you as well as the citizens know about what you are doing every month as it relates to your goals. So as we enter the new year, I would like to update you and the citizens on how you're dealing with those goals. So in December, you, the council, approved a couple of items in conjunction with your goals. One is in the economic development area, whereby you approved the lease agreement for a flight school to operate at the Corpus Christi International Airport. And in the streets area, you did a couple of things. One, you approved the work plan recommending streets for the 5th year of the Street Preventative Maintenance Program and a contract with LNV Inc. to continue implementation of the program in 2018. And you also approve initiating a master service agreement for the proposed 2018 Proposition 1, 2, and 3. Those are two areas that is in conjunction with your goals. The second item I wanted to mention, and hopefully we are nearing completion of it, it is in relation to the Harvey debris collection. This collection schedule continues this week in Area 9, which is enclosed by Violet Road to Old Brownsville Road between I-37 and south to the city limits, and the map shows it on the screen. Next week, citizens should be prepared for Area 10 and are asked to have their items ready for collection by 7 a.m. on Monday, January 15th. I do believe that next week should be the last week of the Harvey debris collection. I did indicate that I wanted to continue to update you regarding this until we completed the process. I'm in hopes that next week will be the last week to have to talk about that. The last item I wanted to mention prior to talking about the two items on the agenda is as it relates to the city calendar. In our ongoing efforts to keep citizens informed, the city has created a 2018 City of Corpus Christi calendar. The calendar features information about 2017 service delivery throughout the organization and key information for 2018, including the brush and recycling schedules. The calendar is available for digital download and print from www.cctexas.com under the Info tab. There are limited copies available, and anyone interested in the limited amount that we have can pick up a copy at the City Hall information desk. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our Director of Communication, Kim Womack, and her team for putting this calendar together in such a short period of time. I have been engaged in putting calendars together, and I do realize the amount of time and effort involved, and I do appreciate that they were able to take care of this in a timely fashion. So again, anyone interested in any of the limited copies we have available can pick them up at the City Hall information desk. But again, it is digital, meaning that you can always look at the calendar and print it by going to www.cctexas.com under the Info tab. Having said that, Mayor and Council, the two items that's listed on the agenda under the city manager comments.
Excuse me, Ms. Rose?
Yes.
But before you get into that, on the brush pickup,
Yes.
when you and the staff determine that the final pickup for hurricane debris, I think it really would be good that we let the public know that that's over and that we do have a rule or an ordinance that you just can't start piling trash up. If your pickup time is not till July, we don't want to see it out there in February.
Okay.
And so, I mean, we're trying to clean the city up, and so once we're past the hurricane debris, if we could really commit that this is the date we're considering as hurricane debris. I mean, it's 4 months after the hurricane, it ought to be, I mean, there's some remodeling going on, but basically that brush pickup gets back on the routine schedule and not to be littering up our city. Just to have it out during the time that your area is going to be picked up, I think would help us a lot.
Okay, we'll take care
Thank
of
you.
that. So moving forward with the 2 items on the agenda, the first item is the utility billing software conversion. Staff, if you could please come forward, we would like to give you a quick update as it relates to the software conversion.
Good afternoon and Happy New Year. My name is Constance Sanchez. I'm the Director of Finance, and with me today we have Sylvia Carrillo Trevino, the Assistant City Manager, Belinda Mercado, the IT Director, and Margaret Morin, our UBO Manager, and Kim Womack, the Director of Communications. Happy New Year. We're going to start the new year with some good news. We had a successful implementation, which began on December the 18th. City Hall Utility Business Office and Central Cashiering have been open to the public since that time. Customers can now pay their utility account using all of the traditional methods as before, by mail, in person, either at Central Cashiering or at one of our substations, by phone, and now online. We would like to encourage our customers to use the city's new website portal to pay online. They will need their new utility account number to register before they're able to pay. The new account numbers can be found on their December utility bill, or customers can call the utility business office to get their new account number. If the lines are busy, we do ask our customers to please leave your name, number, and a brief message, and someone from the UBO office will return their call within 24 hours. And this has been working well for us, even though we have been inundated with phone calls. UBO staff had over 200 messages on Friday, and they did stay till 8 p.m. returning phone calls. We just thought after that it was a little bit too late, so 8 p.m. is the cutoff. In reference to sending out our utility bills, we've been working since our go-live date of the 18th, doing our due diligence to ensure that the bills that are being sent out are accurate. Because of this, and due to the holidays, we were delayed in sending out the December bills. Today, however, the last 2 cycles of our 21 cycles should be mailed, so all utility customers should have their bills by the end of the week. We understand that due to the delay in sending out the bills, the due dates have been compressed, and so we want our customers to know that we will work with them if they're unable to pay their bill by the due date. In fact, no late fees will be assessed this month, and we are working with our customers to establish any payment arrangements if necessary. They just need to call the utility business office to let us know. We will be continuing to make improvements to the billing process, and customers who sign up for paperless billing will soon be able to see a PDF version of their bill online. So we do have more things to come in the future. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of the staff who have worked on this project since it began in October of 2014. This is quite a long time, and we've seen staff come and go during that time, but there was one constant factor that kept everyone on track and kept going with the project, and that was the project manager, Gloria Posada. She's not with us in this room at this time, but she was the glue that kept us together and kept us going, and I want to publicly thank Gloria for all of her hard work and personal sacrifice. It was because of her leadership that we were able to complete this project. I also would like to, of course, thank the finance staff, the IT staff, and the communication staff, and the Infor consultants for their dedication to this project and for their good attitude in seeing it through to completion. We have formed a good partnership that have helped contribute to the success of this project. So as we wind down on the public part of the project, we are continuing to work behind the scenes and making sure that all aspects of the transitions are complete and working as designed. We are also working on enhancing the payment portal, as I mentioned, in an effort to continually improve customer service. And finally, I would like to thank our utility customers first and foremost for their patience during this process. We are making these improvements for their benefit, and our ultimate goal is to improve their experience in dealing with the city and with the utility business office in particular. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that y'all may have.
Anybody have any questions?
Thank you, sir.
We've gotten lots of calls, but evidently you've addressed a lot of them, and that's good. Oh, Ms. Rubio, excuse me, I didn't see him up here. Ms. Rubio?
Well, I want to publicly thank Alma Casas. She was able to help me with a customer, and so I wanted to just publicly thank her for all her hard work.
I will
I
pass
know
it on
everybody
to
had
her.
some hand in it, and thank you for all your hard work, but I wanted to personally thank her because
Yeah.
she took my call and she took care of the customer.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
Mr. Garza?
First of all, I want to say thank you for all your hard work. I know how much work it takes to undergo a software conversion of this type, and I guess the issues that can come up. I guess one of the things that I kind of consider a little bit unfortunate is the fact that back in July or August when we were talking about rates, we knew we were going to look at a small increase in rates in January, and here we are. Most customers did not receive bills in the month of December, are now just starting to get their bills. And those bills represent usage of, instead of 30 days, have 40, 41, 42
Correct.
days. And so their bills are higher than they're normally used to looking at. They don't complain that they didn't get a bill. They do complain they got a higher bill when they finally got their bill. And this particular bill does not represent, the increase is not going to be effective until January, correct? So that
Correct.
the current bills do not show that
Correct.
particular, but most of them think that the higher bill is attributed to the increase that we're proposing or we're considering, and we've already voted on, in January. And the higher bills, as I mentioned to one gentleman, is due to the fact that you're paying for more days service versus
Correct.
the additional increase. I did have a question about, I don't know if it's a BOD charge that some businesses get. It has to do with the wastewater and the clean out, or the amount of, and there was a bill in there that seemed to have been higher incrementally than previous periods. And so that's just something that I'm going to need to get some
If you
information
can get
on.
with me and we'll look at that account.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Ms. Rubio? Oh, Ms. Opal?
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. That was a very nice presentation, and I know that likewise with the other council members, that software conversions can be problematic, shall we say. When you are discussing getting that new account number
Yes,
from the December bill, is that the bill that was received in December, or you are also talking about there are another couple of cycles that are going to come through? Will that show up on the bill they get for the month of December or in the month of December?
For the month of December that
So
they're
we'll start
receiving
now.
now. Yes,
So
ma'am.
they would be receiving that in January. So the bills that they're getting
In
right now in
January.
January, when they find that number, that's their new utility bill, business office account number.
Correct.
And that is the number that they will need. Don't go to your December bill
Correct. It's the bill you're receiving now.
for services in December.
Yes, ma'am, you're
Okay, I just
correct.
wanted to clarify that.
Yes.
'Cause
And it's very easy to log on. There's a link on our webpage. You just click on it, you put the account number and your email, and you can register. It's very easy. I paid my bill. It was no problem.
And so once, if our citizens elect to pay their bill that way, is there a courtesy fee? Is there an additional charge for paying it online, or?
There is no fee at this time.
So at this point, it's just it's a very much a
courtesy.
a courtesy and a customer service attribute that we're adding to the process.
Correct. And one enhancement that we are working on is trying to get that PDF copy online as well. So that should be coming soon.
So it kind of makes us up to date with the way that other people
Right.
do their business.
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes.
Anything else? I'm grinning. I think it's wonderful because they sent my bill to my son's house. So, well, I'm waiting for him to pay it, but my daughter-in-law handed it to me when I went to visit him the other day. She said, "I think this is yours." So, oh, okay. But I'm sure there's going to be some glitches periodically, but if they report it to the billing department, they'll get it straightened out as quickly as possible.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, I'm not a computer guy, but I know it's awfully frustrating when they don't work, so we're glad it's done, and hopefully it will all be behind us. You say with the bills they'll be getting in January, they should be good.
The bills we're going to be mailing in January, yes, sir. So,
Okay.
yes, you're correct.
And nobody's had their water or their utilities cut off as a result of this process.
You're correct.
So just in case there's some fake news out there, people getting their water cut off or their utilities cut off because of the
Not for
computer.
non-payment.
Not, yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, good. Well, that's very good. Anything else? And you ladies all still have your hair. You haven't pulled it all out through this process.
Just have a few more grays, but that's all right. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much, ladies. The second item under the city manager comments is the review of the wastewater rates, and we have staff that's available that's going to provide that review.
Mayor, City Council members, my name is Reba George, Assistant Director of Support Services with Water Utilities. We also have Mark Van Vleck, our Assistant City Manager, and Dan Grimsbaugh, our Executive Director. We've been asked to review our wastewater utility rate, specifically the most recent change from the winter quarter averaging rate structure to the adopted rate structure based on actual water usage.
Now, let me ask you, just stop right there. In light of what they just reported, all billing that people have received up through now don't reflect the new rates, right?
Correct.
So I'm a little puzzled, and there may be a lot of confusion in that they're saying that their rates have gone up or they're paid more for their month, and the new rates hadn't even kicked in yet. These are just because of the conversion in the computer and the billing system as opposed to the rate structure. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes, sir.
So if you're in the media, if you'd please report that their bills are based on the old rates. The new rates have not gone into effect, and it's simply the conversion process, and it will be cleared up, hopefully, by the January billing or the next billing cycle. You'll explain that, but I think it needs to be real clear that the concern about your monthly bill may be more than it was. It's because maybe you got a month and a half bill instead of a month bill. Has nothing to do with the rates that are going into effect in January. So I think that may be part of if people understand that, that may help in their understanding if you're getting a bill for a month and a half or 2 months as opposed to, it's a timing of the billing process and not the rate structure. Okay, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that, when you said that, and hearing what they said, I said, well, that may be part of the confusion, that they're all happening about the same time, and that's where the problem. All right, proceed.
And just quickly, when developing our wastewater rate structure, the assumptions that I've listed here were incorporated into the rate model projections, and some of these assumptions were the result of the feedback received from you during workshops. The most significant assumptions are that the winter quarter averaging method would no longer be used, and instead we would be using a tiered water based on water usage for our wastewater rate. The new wastewater rate structure includes a minimum charge with a tiered rate structure based on actual water usage. This slide shows the previous rate structure based on winter quarter averaging and the current adopted rate structure for residential wastewater rates. These
And that was a reduction.
It was a change in the rate structure, so there could be reductions for some customers at some levels depending on their consumption.
Right, but I mean, based on the 2,000 gallons, if a person used 2,000 gallons in December and they use 2,000 gallons in January, then they will see a reduction in their bill for that 2,000 gallons.
Yes, sir.
All right, proceed.
These two tables provide a comparison of sample bills between previous and adopted water and wastewater rates at 3, 4, 8, 5, and 8,000 gallons of usage. This slide summarizes the wastewater rate structure.
Wait, just go ahead. I hate to keep interrupting you, but this is not only an educational process for us, but
Sure.
I think it's for the public, and we need to get in the record. The record doesn't reflect the number. So what you're saying is that the water rates in water and wastewater, they will see a little tweaking of the difference in the water rates, but in the 3, 4, 5, and 8,000 gallon wastewater rates, they will see a reduction based on the shift.
If you compare your winter quarter average to the new tiered rates, yes, sir.
All right, proceed.
This slide summarizes the wastewater rate structure adopted by ordinance on September 12, 2017. The table includes rates for our residential and commercial customers inside and outside city limits. We've included this slide to provide a usage profile of all of our residential water customers inside the city limits. Our customers' median water usage is approximately 4,000 gallons. One way to think about it, half of our customers use 4,000 gallons or less each month. We stand by for questions.
And the other interesting thing is, and I think Mr. Smith has alluded to this in the past, that we are using less water today than we used, well, how long ago was it, Councilman Smith, 5 years?
3 years.
We're,
Less water today than we.
I mean, that's phenomenal for a city that has grown in the 20 years and the industrial growth we've had, that we're using less water today than we did 20 years ago. And that's because of improved processes of use of water. Industry has bent over backwards trying to make it more efficient. People have become conservation conscious. And I may be wrong, but I don't know of any other city in America can say they're using less water today that has grown than they did 20 years ago. So, and the rates, and for people to live within 4,000 majority of people to use 4,000 gallons or less a month, I've got to go get some advice from them because I'm not able to do that. But anyway, Ms. Vaughn.
I got quite a few questions. You know what this reminds me of, and we did this process as a salesman, a car salesman. When you go to the car lot, they say the car is going to be $20,000, but I'm going to give it to you for $15,000. But what they don't tell you is you're going to have a 5-year note, and your interest rate's probably going to be 20%. So you're going to end up paying way more than the $20,000 that you thought you were going to pay. I said from the get-go I didn't like the way this was done. I disagreed because I think we were deceitful in how we did it. We told the public you were getting a discount, a decrease in your water, which they did, it looks like. But the wastewater, we can't measure wastewater. And what I want to know, I really appreciated the letter from Robert Kent, because he hit on everything, and he's here, and I hope we hear from him in a few minutes. But I'm going to ask some questions because I don't want to say I told you so, but I can't help myself. I did tell you so. I don't believe for a second if you sit there and tell me you're going to get $32 million more increase within 2 years, there's revenue coming in, so the rates somewhere are going to go up, and they're going to go up substantially. And I think that's what's happened here. And I'm disappointed in how it was done. And just so the public knows, this council did vote for that, but there were 3 people that didn't. It was Michael Hunter, Lisa Rubick, and I did not vote for it. We didn't go for it. I disagreed with and still do. But you may not owe me an explanation, Mr. Van Vleck, Mrs. Rose, but you certainly owe this man that wrote this letter an explanation on what he asked. He talked about, assume a homeowner would use exactly the same amount of water each month during a year, which is not even close to being accurate if you have an irrigation system or pool or wash your car. If they had used the example in the summertime instead of the winter, it would have shown the increase in the rates. Is that not true? It would have, because you use more water in the summer than you do the winter.
The new rate structure is based on actual water usage. So if you use 20,000 gallons in the summer, yes, you would be billed for that 20,000 gallons. We do have a cap on the new wastewater tiered structure at 25,000 gallons.
Okay, I'm going to let him ask you when he gets up here, but I'm going to continue here. He said the notice only went to the people who received paper bills. If you were billed electronically, like the city wants you to do, you didn't receive a notice. And when he asked about the billing, he said, we receive our bill electronically. They said they did not know how to send out a notice electronically, which is hard to believe, yet they're able to send me a note each month when my bill's ready. So was it not sent to the people?
The system has the ability to send out a notice to all customers who are electronic customers. However, the notice of the new rate that we received in our utility bills, the insert, was not sent to the electronically billed customers out of oversight.
Which is very sad. That's a communication problem. He said that he had a meeting with Reba and Dan, which I'm assuming are you two, and in the meeting, he was talking, he said, they know the rates are going up and used the phrase, it wasn't our choice. This was the decision the council imposed on us. So, Mrs. Rose, I would ask you this. Yes, the council did impose the rates, but they rely on the staff for information. So that is how they made their decision, is what staff gave them. Most of the people use the 4,000 gallons per you, Mr. Van Vleck, because I went back and looked at the August meeting. So the wastewater charge is about $30 a month. Under the previous methodology, that cost would remain constant during the year. Under the new methodology, should that homeowner's water usage increase to 20,000 gallons during the summer, the wastewater charge would be about $125 a month, or an increase of $95 a month. Assuming 6 summer months, the annual increase is $570 per year. Is that accurate?
Actually, some of those numbers are not quite correct, and I believe we've gone over those with Mr. Kent, but Dan has, I think, the notes on that, that rate, the 4,000 winter quarter average rate.
So, he was Dan Grimsbill, Executive Director of Water Utilities. He was comparing $40 to the $125, which are both in the new tier rate. In the old system, it was a little bit different. It would have lowered the price some, but you would have been comparing the winter average of $47, and the difference would have been, instead of $510, or $10, we estimated at $468. I mean, just so you're comparing winter average to
He's pretty
the
close.
new tier. Okay, that's a true statement. So, Reba and I did talk with them, and I'd like to make one clarification that we did not say that we were forced to go into this decision. We talked about many, and I say many, but several different ways to approach this bill, the wastewater bill as a whole that we have to pay for, which is to maintain the wastewater collection and wastewater treatment systems. We discussed each of them with Mr. Kent, and actually indicated to him, and he stated it in here, that we went over the fairness as the public as a whole, and had a look at, and I say, the low end and the high end of usage. His example, he brings in that in winter quartering averages, there would be a difference because he uses a significant amount of water. But that holds true for somebody in the winter who uses, say they have a large family, and they use 6,000 gallons for 3 months in a row. Then in the summer, they only use 3,000 or 4,000. So they are also being, in the winter quarter averages, would be charged for a non-use, meaning that the average winter is 5,000 or 6,000, but in the summer, if they're only using 3,000 or 4,000, because they could be a winter Texan and they're gone, so they're not using it, they're getting paid or they're getting charged to use the wastewater treatment system, but are not sending that amount of water there. So we emphasize that when we tried to do this, we were looking at the whole population, the whole customers as a whole, and trying to figure out the best way to approach paying the overarching bill to maintain our wastewater collection system and treatment system. If you look at the outliers and you look at each customer, there is anomalies all along it. If you do winter averaging, it seems that the lower end could potentially be subsidizing, the higher end, or if we're doing it the way we're doing now with water usage, it could seem, and we discussed that in the workshops, and Mr. Van Vleck stated it, that in a way there is a subsidization from the higher end to the lower end because we were trying to keep the rates at the lower end the same, and this council had pros and cons to all that, and that's what we were trying to explain to Mr. Kent, and which I'm trying to explain
What do
today.
you consider the lower end?
The people who use 2,000 or 3,000 gallons.
But most of the users are 4,000.
Right, that's the mean. So half the people
That's
use.
what you said, yes.
Right, half the people, the mean is 4,000. Half the people use below that, and then the other half of the population uses above that. But the majority of our population is in if you looked at the one graph we had, the majority of our population uses in the range between 2,000 and 6,000 gallons of water. That's a large portion of our population. The population that uses 25,000 gallons, or even 20 to 30 or 15, it's probably 2.6% of the overall population or customers. So that's what we were trying to explain, and I'm sure Mr. Ken will come up and also explain his rhyme and reason to what we were trying to say. But that's what we were trying to say, that as a council and a utilities department, we were trying to figure out a fair way to pay what we look at as the entire bill for the community, and how do we do that across the population. And so that's how we ended the conversation. And I think Mr. Ken understood that. He still doesn't really agree with it, but I think he understood it.
Well, in your conversation that had to do with the council is Mrs. Rose's problem, not mine, because she's in staff, but I just don't think it was a very good statement. Anyway, I'm going to finish up real quick. He talks about the only way to avoid it is to put a second meter in for irrigation. There's a $100 permit fee, $807 city fee, and estimated $300 charge from a plumber, to a total cost of about $1,200. Is this true? Can you put the second meter in, and do we have all these charges?
That is a true statement, but normally we only have about 721 of those secondary meters, and are normally, most of them are commercial for very large irrigation system, like someone who's using it for, producing grass or along that lines. It's not normally a residential person who is going to put in an irrigation, put in a second meter.
Well, they might want to now, since they know these rates are going up, but it's obvious that you can't afford to do it because it's too expensive. So the city needs to look at that. I would like to have known that before too. I would consider putting one in to show, because you can't measure the wastewater. And I have a pool, it's a lot of people do in irrigation, so the rate is really going to go up, and I'm paying a ridiculous price right now, I think, for water. My water bills is about $600 every month. It's crazy. Anyway, I am very frustrated about this. I understand what he said. I agree with everything he said. I pretty well said it at the workshops, and others did too, because I don't like the way we did it. And that, to me, is one of the reasons that people do not trust government. It looked like we were going to give them something less, and we go in there and we come in behind the door, at the other end of the door, I say, and then we know if you're getting $16 million more, there is a rate increase somewhere. You're getting $16 million, $32 million over 2 years is what you said. And the other thing is the reasons. I went back and looked at the tape, and the reasons that were given at the very beginning, Reba, one of the things you said, reasons for raising it and changing it from the winter averaging was because people were confused over the bill. And maybe they were confused, but someone would probably like to go back the way it was right now. And then as we go on, Mr. Risley comes on the tape, and he talks about the EPA and the threat of litigation, which is true. But to me, if I were a citizen and you told me that you had to have more money to maintain or repair something, I would rather have the real reason to come up and not have a problem to pay than to say, because people are confused about the bill. They may be confused, but that's not the reason to change. I didn't have a problem with the winter averaging, and I'm going to shut up because I'm hoping that he comes up and speaks. But these are frustrations that not only he feels, but a lot of citizens do. And so we as a city, we need to communicate better. We need to be more transparent in what we're wanting, and I think this is one of the very examples where we did not do that. We did not prepare the public for it, and shame on us. Thank you.
Ms. Opal.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to lead off by saying something to the council, which is I think based on several things that we have in front of us right now, that when we take major action as a council, we need to establish a policy that we are going to ask from staff, Ms. Rose, that we have a communication strategy of what we're going to do with this. Because what we're dealing here, as the old movie goes, Mr. Hunter, what we have here is a failure to communicate. We are dealing with issues again and again. I'm so sorry to hear that we didn't have the processes and systems in place, Ms. Rose, that we were able to understand that we needed to get that out electronically, because not everybody gets that bill the same way. We are a $750 million organization. We are not looking like it right now. We are looking like a small city that does not know where it's headed. I think that when I look at the slide on page 6, so we start at a $2,000 delta, then we go to a $4,000, then we jump to a 9,000, and then we jump. So I don't even like the way that we set this up. If most of the folks are at the 4,000 range, we should be looking at these in terms of chunks. I can't tell you where I fit. I don't know where our problems are going to be in terms of total usage throughout the year, but I'm pretty sure you guys could have looked at total gallons usage of water, and you could probably tell me where's that number? How many gallons a year do I use that might likely tip me into costing more money or less? And I know we have the analytical skills to do this. I know the talent is in the house, but I don't know if we're not having enough time to take this on, if we're not getting out to enough people. But this should not be coming at a surprise right now to all of our citizens. They should have known this 60 days ago. Hey, get ready, things are gonna change. And I don't see us getting out ahead on these issues. We are chasing these issues over and over again. And that's really beginning to cause me alarm about how we're getting out to the community. You know, there's another, in our email today, there was someone else that we've met with who said, you didn't tell me this was coming. And we hear that again and again. And so how we balance this out, we do have a challenge. They are very real costs, and we are going to have to pay those costs. But we need to find a better way to begin to look at how we're communicating with our citizens. We're not giving them information that they need. I'm not sure when they found out how the bill was going to work in December that they weren't going to be able to pay the bill the way that they were used to. I think they found out, I don't know, maybe there was something I didn't see. The council certainly didn't get any awareness of what that plan was going to be. So as we look moving forward, we have got to get better about being transparent. We've got to be able to communicate. We've got to be able to deliver for our citizens even unpleasant news. If my bill goes up, I may not like it, but if I understand it and I want to be able to know where to go with that. And so we, Ms. Rose, have got to do a better job of understanding what our citizens need to be able to get in front of this and not feel like that we're victimizing them at the end.
Okay, Mr. Smith?
Reva or Mr. Van Vleck, these rates, are they revenue neutral?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so in other words, the city's not making a profit. They're just covering our expenses. And so if we hadn't raised these rates, what would have happened?
Well, the revenue on these, if I remember right, the 12 million was essentially because we hadn't had to make debt service payments, and so those were already in there. So these, if we had stayed with the winter quarter averaging, they basically would have stayed exactly the same. Okay, they would have went up just slightly, but if I'm correct, mainly it was the rounding was one of the things. But as far as the total revenue, it remained the same projection for this fiscal year as it was for last fiscal year.
And if we hadn't raised the rates, then we would have had a deterioration. We wouldn't have. Right now, our Allison wastewater plant, what's the condition of that wastewater plant?
Right now, it's in terrible condition.
Terrible condition, because we've deferred maintenance on it year after year, because we have budget problems, or we subsidize the rates. Basically, because we haven't spent the money on maintaining, correct?
Well, I can't say it was in the past. I've been here a short time, but I can make that assumption, yes.
So
based on the plan.
if we hadn't changed the rates, raised the rates, so to speak, we would have followed that pattern, that our infrastructure would have continued to deteriorate, like it has, we're trying to correct. And I supported this because I think it is very important that we maintain our infrastructure on there and we don't continue to let it deteriorate. And if we hadn't, now, one thing, we have a collision of our billing. What we heard today is people got higher bills because we're doing a new billing practice, but the new rates aren't in effect. Not a single person has received a bill with these rates, yet we have received plenty of communication, and that's because we did this billing change about at this same time. And I think with this new rate structure, we all discussed, there was a lot of issue over the averaging on there, that in the first quarter we'll probably get less revenue, the people's bills will be lower. We'll see when people's bills are higher are going to be in the summertime. And then we do have some protections, the $25,000 max on the sewer rate. So if somebody's using 100,000 gallons on there, that they're limited on that. So we do have some topside protection.
For residential customers.
For residential customers, yeah. I don't see, it's a hard choice. I hate raising rates just as bad as everybody else, and everybody knows on cost, I'm always trying to create value and efficiencies. I didn't like the $220 million more we would have had to increase our rates if we went to the consolidated wastewater plant, and I fought that tooth and nail there. But here, we have got a deteriorating collection system on there that we're in lawsuits because of it. We're bringing more water in our plants because it's leaky and it's old. And we had to raise the rates. It's a tough choice. You don't get votes by raising rates, but as citizens in a better community, I stand by what we did, and thank you all for it.
Ms. Opal?
I just have one quick follow-up question. You know, thinking about technology and you know, what people want out of that technology, is there any way that we could have or could create a calculator, you know, like the mortgage calculators, you go in and you plug this and you do that, that if I wanted to go in and look at what might happen to my bill, if these things happen, if I had wastewater winter averaging of here and now I'm going to use these gallons, is there any way, I know that that takes some time and technology, but might that be one way that we could help citizens understand what, because I know you don't want to talk to 90,000 people. I mean, that's a lot of folks to have to come in and deal with. But if I can understand what it was and then what it's going to be, then it might be easier for me to be able to do that. So if that might just be an option to be able to look at some way that I could go on and do it, a DIY, if you will, to better understand what's happening with this process.
Okay, Ms. Vaughn?
How much did we bring in last year?
I don't have the last year's numbers with me.
Do we have an idea? I bet we have an idea. You know all of this.
72 million.
It's very seldom you don't know Mark Van Fleck. You got an estimate? Was it 16 million? Was it 16 million?
The total amount?
Mm-hmm.
No, it was much higher than that. I can't
Closer
remember
to
whether
72.
70 to 72 is what they're somewhere in
70,
there.
72?
Right.
I would be interested because we really don't know what we're going to bring in. We're estimating, we're thinking it's going to be around 16 million, 32 over 2 years. So I would be curious for the end of the year what we really bring in, because I believe we're going to bring in more. I believe we're going to get more money than what we're sitting here saying. I really do. And Mayor McComb, if we do that, I will be nice to you for a year. If we can get that number and I'm wrong,
Let the record reflect.
and I won't be emotional. Thank you.
That just gets me all emotional. But you'll have to do that from the courthouse. Ms. Rose?
There was conversation mentioned about giving the impression that after the decision was rendered that we was going to move from the winter averaging to the new system, that staff had not done any communicating. That is not true. I am looking at information that stipulates that we communicated, and there's a lot of media coverage regarding the changes that were made. So to give the indication that we took this information and just put it together and sent it out to the citizens is totally not true. And I wanted to make sure that you knew that the citizens, everybody may not have known. We can't account for making sure that everybody knows. The goal is to try to, but we have the media tools that we use, and we did get this information out. And I think it's important for you to know, because it gives the impression to the citizens that we have no idea how to communicate to them about these type of issues, and we did so.
Hey, Ms. Vaughn?
I just want to clarify. We didn't say that you weren't communicating. We said we could do better at communicating, is what we said. So we didn't say you didn't communicate. We could do better, because everybody doesn't look at our website. Everybody doesn't read the paper. So I think there is always room for improvement.
Oh, and I do concur, Councilwoman Vaughn, but I heard some different information along the way, and that's why I felt I needed to clarify.
All right, and I think we did acknowledge publicly that we dropped the ball in communicating with our electronic people or something. But if the experience at my house is like the experience at many homes in the community, we got a letter from the utility department or something, and my wife says, "What's this about?" And I said, "I don't know, I hadn't seen it. She just opened the mail, and I said, I don't know. And I said, I'll check it later, and that's where it's been. She still doesn't know what it is, and I haven't seen it. So I have no idea what you sent out. But something came, I know that. Ms. Opal.
Ms. Rose, thank you for that. I think that really reflects kind of my interest in why we might want to have a more formalized communication strategy so that the council would understand what the staff's plan would be, because there are a number of ways that we can reach out. I mean, we have a lot of avenues that we don't have to rely on just our social media or our friends in the media to be able to help get the word out. I know that we have a lot of touch points. We have a lot of proximity to hundreds of people, through thousands of people really, through many different interfaces that we have along the way. And I think capitalizing more on the proximity and the one-on-one, certainly if there are targeted populations where we know they're going to be more unique or more susceptible to concerns about issues that we take here on the council, that's a very important piece. And the other piece of that is, you know, from the council standpoint, when staff is out doing all this good work, if we don't have access to it, I mean, I really am becoming concerned that we're trying to run the city a little bit by email, because we may get an email, but we get how many hundred emails, that the council as a group might be able to be effective in helping support the message if we knew what that message was, when it was going to be delivered, and how we might be able to carry it forward. So I think these things are very difficult to go through, but I am just offering this, that this is a point in time when we really need to go and look at what we're doing as a large organization to reach about 300,000 people that we want to get to on and off. We've got to find some new ways and more effective ways to do that so that we leverage what we're getting from the earned media and the media that we work on, but we've got to get a little bit more creative. And certainly when we're trying to push technology, we got to make sure that technology doesn't get overlooked in the communication process.
And I do concur with that, Mayor and Council, in that we will look to providing you a lot more of our communication plan, because you too, you are absolutely correct. You too can help us get the information out. I just needed to make sure it's clear that we're not just sitting here taking this information and not trying to do something with it. We're going to add you to the list.
All right. An old phrase that my mother taught me was, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. I mean, we can get as much information out there as we want. If people aren't going to pay attention to it and then come back and say we weren't told, that's, anyway. But Mr. Kent, you had signed up and you've been quoted, and would you like to speak at this point?
Yeah, thank you. First off, let me just ask a question. I've heard differing statements. Mr. Van Vleck, is the new system revenue neutral? It is. Okay, so Councilman Smith, it's not a rate increase. It's revenue neutral. Right. So I'm not sure why everybody keeps thinking it's a rate increase. It's neutral. He said it 4 times, and people asked about the increase. I don't care if you increase wastewater rates. If you need to raise them, I'm fine with that. The problem I have is by changing a winter averaging system that was in place for many, many years, and according to my friend Nick Jimenez, it was something the council debated when the wastewater charges were first put in, because you don't measure wastewater. So how do you estimate wastewater? The sense was, well, let's pick a time when they're not irrigating lawns, filling pools, washing cars. And it was decided to do the winter. So the problem I have is you've thrown out that methodology, and so now you're charged wastewater for water you use to water your lawn. I think that's just morally and ethically incorrect. If you need to double the wastewater rate, double the wastewater rate. But don't change how you measure it and then say, oh, we kept our rates the same. I think the note the city sent out was maybe not purposely, but I think it was a little bit misleading because it showed constant usage for a month. And constant usage for a month, their numbers show it goes down. The problem I have is in the summertime when you use more water because now you're irrigating, you're washing your car, you're filling your pool, you're going to pay wastewater charges on that water you didn't pay before. That's where the increase comes in. I don't begrudge the city the increase. I begrudge the manner in which you got it. If you want to increase wastewater, increase wastewater. Don't charge us for a service we don't get. The other point I would make is I think the 25,000 gallon limit is absurdly high. No home puts almost no homes put 25,000 gallons of water to the wastewater. You guys probably know better than I do. And I think a limit of say 6,000 or 8,000, whatever the city thinks appropriate, would be a better number and it would correct what I think is the biggest injustice of charging people a lot for water they put on their lawn in the summer. So whatever that number needs to be, I think that would be an easy fix. In talking with Dan and Reba last week, I think the impact of doing that on the revenues is almost nil, and I think it corrects the majority of the problem I have. Going forward, in subsequent years, winter averaging may be a problem because people say, well, I had neighbors over in December and I think my bill's too high. What you could look at doing is taking the lowest 3 months of any 12-month period and just say that that's more likely when you're not using water for irrigation. And if your low period happens to be in the summer because you're a winter Texan, or your low period happens to be in the winter because you're a full-time resident, it'll be the fairest system. There's no reason you can't do that. It's a very easy thing to do, I think. It's very understandable by people, and it's a fair way to charge for wastewater. So I don't know if the 3 minutes applies or not, but what I'd like to just leave with is what I'd like to see the council do is to simply reduce the cap on the wastewater from 25,000 gallons to something lower that represents reasonably what a homeowner would put to the sewer, and then do whatever you need to do to the wastewater rates to get your revenue to what it needs to be. Thank you for your time.
Okay. And Ms. Jervik, and then anyone else that wants to address this that didn't speak during the public on this particular agenda item.
My name's Virginia Jeverick, and I live at 325 Cape Cod. And I ditto what Mr. Kent said. I'm all for the environment. I'm all for protecting, doing infrastructure, taking care of what we need to take care of. But you have to remember that every one of us, no matter our state in life, we are using the infrastructure. We are benefiting from the water. And if you want to pass a fee that's going to help with the infrastructure and the treatment problem, you can do that. And I think if you're doing the averaging where you come up with 4,000, you're probably looking at a lot of people in apartments or condos. You're not comparing fairly. And I don't mind paying more, but I don't want to pay for what's not going into the wastewater. I just want it to be a fair thing that the whole society ends up paying for, because we're all at risk, and we all use the water, and we all have to take care of it. So thank you for your work. Happy New Year. And I know it's a dilemma, but I would appreciate you taking us into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else that want to address on this particular item, the wastewater rate? All right, then we'll, Ms. Rhodes, does that conclude y'all's presentation? Anybody? No, I don't see any lights up on the question thing, so I think we'll look at it, we'll see where we are, and we may run the numbers again, I guess, just to verify we're accurate on them. If in fact we've made a mistake, I think they'll come back and recommend an adjustment. But this is on a 2-year basis, right? We adopt the rates for 2 years. So let's get through this first billing cycle, and I think the impetus when this thing first started was that I don't know about everybody else, but I mean, when we were talking in the room at our workshops, was that people were confused with the winter averaging. For instance, historically, they'd take, what were your 3 months of the winter averaging? The October, November, and December? Or
November, December, January.
And that would be, for instance, if you were winter averaging on your new rates, if we had stayed incorporated in that, the rate that you get on your February bill of this year would have been for November, December, and your February bill, which would have reflected January of 2018, would have been reflective of the use of your water in November and December of 16 and January of 17.
That's
so
correct.
We're a year behind on the usage, and people were confused when they just didn't understand, because they'd see their water bill at one rate and their average at a different, and that was part of the confusion. And it all goes, in their mind, through the pipes and then out. So I understand there's a difference between wastewater and stormwater, but that was kind of the impetus for trying to be fair and also address the need. And I think when Mr. Smith was saying the rates hadn't changed, revenue neutral is the same. Now, the brackets, the rates may have been tweaked a little bit within the bracket. Back to your question, it wasn't a rate, the rates, the adjustments in the rates, but the bottom line, at the end of a 12-year period, a 12-month period, the revenue will be the same, it's just come from different rates. And I think that's, so we weren't trying to be misleading. I think it's just the way you understood the revenue neutral. We're generating the same amount of money, but some people are going to be paying less, and some people are going to be paying more, depending on how it's spread out. And it's not something easy to explain to the general public. It's not really easy to explain it to me. I have to have it done 2 or 3 times. I'm a canary. I was in the slow group. I wasn't in the redbird reading group. But anyway, at some point, we're all trying to provide the service that we want at the cost that we can all afford. And so we'll continue to look at it and review it. And thank you for your
Mayor, I got one quick question.
Quick question.
Quick, very quick.
3rd time. Scar, go ahead.
Keeping count?
Yep.
Just checking to see what other cities do. I know that there's a mixed bag of the way that cities address wastewater, because we're not the only city where you can't meter wastewater, right? That's not common. So whether it's now or in some future communication, what is the way that cities manage this across the state?
Okay. And Ms. Vaughn has a quick question.
The year hadn't passed yet.
Oh.
A statement that was made, and this is my concern, I'm just going to say it, it was in the August meeting, it said, it appears we are collecting less, but we are actually collecting more. That statement was made by one of the staff. You can go back and look at it. This is the problem that I'm talking about. I, like them, do not have a problem with me paying more so that we can do maintenance and all of this stuff, infrastructure. I have a problem with how we present it to the public. And this right here is the very reason that I said we don't trust government. So we have to be careful when we're saying something and we give it to the public. It needs to be completely accurate, exactly what we need it for, and I think the public supports things like that. Thank you.
All right. And I think the summary is that our ability to communicate offers a great opportunity to improve. Ms. Rose, anything else?
Can I just ask one? How will the public know if the city's going to do anything?
In our new and improved communication system. We'll let you know. Right now, we're just taking all this in and trying to figure it out. There's no question we've got to improve our communication ability, whether it's putting us on a street corner with a megaphone or getting on television or over the internet. Not everybody goes to the internet. Not everybody takes a newspaper. Matter of fact, fewer and fewer people are reading the newspapers. They listen to the radio. But somehow we've got to improve the communication, or we've got to make things that we mail out attractive enough to garner people's attention, because and I'll be honest with you, I don't know how many press releases the city puts out. They put out a lot. If you're not on their press release notice on the internet or email or something, I don't do Twitter, so it either has to be text or probably emails. But I get something from the city. I don't know how many I've gotten on road closures. I think it's wonderful we're communicating, but I see it, city road closure. I just delete it. I figure if the road's closed, I'll find out when I get there. And at a certain point, you just, after a while, you get inundated with all this stuff. You finally just don't pay attention. It's not that we're not sending information out, but if you could tell me at 8 o'clock in the morning what road's going to be closed and I don't get there till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you think I'm going to remember that? And then I get a ticket for driving around and reading emails while I'm trying to make sure what road's open. I just find out when I get there. So I don't want the chief to come and give me a ticket for reading the city advisory not to go down this road. So it's the ability to communicate and the way we communicate. And it's a challenge because it's a moving target. Not just the roads, but everything else. And part of it is process, and part of it is people. We have a very short attention span. And we live in a world that thinks that you can get a full course dinner by driving through a drive-in restaurant. If it isn't delivered by the time you quit giving your order and the time you get there in about 30 seconds, you're mad. The old days of doing things and doing them right, it just, but we live in an instant world and our communications are not quite there yet, or we just saturate with, we live in the information age. That's part of the problem. We got too much information. We can't process it. But anyway, we'll work on it. We're going to try to do better. And we meet on every Tuesday except the first Tuesday of the month. And you're welcome to come down anytime, and we'd be delighted to have you. And when we have a chance to visit, I'd like to talk to you about the wall going up around your subdivision out there. That seems to be that's not a city project, though, thank goodness.
Talk about that anytime you want.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, you could talk a lot about that then. Okay, well, thank you very much, Ms. Rose. Huh? We'll take a look at it. I think it's good. We open for any and all good suggestions. So, who'd you say? What'd you say? Oh, okay. That completes your report?
That completes my report.